Jin looked out the window of their small apartment. The city of New Seoul spread below him. Tall buildings reached toward the sky. Bright lights blinked in the darkness. This was one of the last human cities left on Earth. "Are you ready?" Hyun asked, walking into the room. Jin turned to look at his wife. They had been married for 8 years and worked as bounty hunters for 5. Before that, they were soldiers in Earth's army. Now they worked alone, hunting the worst enemies of humanity. "Almost," Jin said. He picked up his gun from the table. It was a special weapon he had built himself. The pulse rifle could shoot through most armor. Jin had used it to kill 17 Imperial officers already. Each kill was marked on the side of the gun with a small line. Hyun nodded and went to get her own weapons. She preferred blades to guns. Her vibro blades could cut through metal and made almost no sound. This made her perfect for sneaking onto enemy ships. While Jin created noise and drew attention, Hyun would move through the shadows and strike from behind. The comm unit on the wall beeped. Jin pressed the button to answer. "You're both needed at headquarters right away," said a voice. "Commander Park has your next mission." Jin looked at Hyun. They both knew what this meant. Another dangerous job. Another chance to strike back at the Galactic Empire that had been killing humans across the stars. "We'll be there in 20 minutes, Jin said, and ended the call. They gathered their gear in silence. Each mission could be their last. The Empire was strong, with thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. Humans were losing the war badly. In the last 5 years, the Empire had destroyed 15 human colonies. Billions of people were dead. Jin and Hyun took a transport to the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. The building was mostly underground to hide from Imperial scanners. They passed through 6 security checkpoints before reaching Commander Park's office. Commander Park was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. He had led Earth's forces for 10 years. Each year, his face had more lines, his hair more gray. The war was taking its toll on everyone. "Sit down," Park said when they entered. He pointed to the chairs in front of his desk. "I have a special mission for you two." Jin and Hyun sat down. On the desk was a small device. Park pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air above it. The hologram showed a large ship and an alien with scaly skin and 4 eyes. "This is Admiral Vrock," Park said. "He commands the Imperial forces in the Proxima Centauri system. Our spies tell us he is planning a major attack on Earth. If he succeeds, humanity is finished." Hyun leaned forward. "Proxima Centauri? That's where New Mars colony was located?" Park nodded. "Yes, the colony where your sister lived with her family." Jin looked at his wife. Her face showed no emotion, but he knew her. Well, inside she was feeling both pain and anger. 6 months ago, the Empire had destroyed New Mars colony. Hyun's sister, Mina, had been living there with her husband and 2 children. There had been no survivors. "What's the mission?" Jin asked, turning back to Park. "Simple but nearly impossible," Park replied. "Get to Proxima Centauri, board Admiral Vrock's ship, kill him before he can launch his attack on Earth." "Simple," Jin said with a small smile. "What resources do we get?" Park pressed another button. A new hologram appeared, showing a sleek ship with unusual engines. "This is the Starshot," Park explained. "Our newest ship. It has experimental cloaking technology that might get you past Imperial scanners. It's small, fast, and has enough weapons to handle a few Imperial fighters if needed." "Might get past scanners?" Hyun asked. "It's untested in real combat conditions," Park admitted, "but it's the best chance we have." Jin looked at the hologram of the ship, then at the image of Admiral Vrock. "When do we leave?" "Immediately," Park said. "Our latest intelligence says the attack will come in 72 hours. You need to kill Vrock before then." Hyun stood up. "We'll need supplies, weapons, information about the Admiral's ship." Park handed them a small data chip. "Everything we know is on this. The Starshot is already loaded with supplies. It's waiting in Hangar 7. Jin and Hyun left the office and headed to the hangar. As they walked, Jin noticed his wife was unusually quiet. "We'll make him pay," Jin said softly. "For Mina and her family. Hyun's eyes were hard when she looked at him. This isn't just about revenge, it's about survival. If Earth falls, humans are finished forever. They reached Hangar 7 and saw the Starshot for the first time. The ship was smaller than Jin expected, with a sharp front and wide wings. Its black surface seemed to swallow light. A technician met them at the boarding ramp. "The ship is ready," she said. "The cloaking system uses a lot of power, so use it only when necessary. You have enough fuel to reach Proxima Centauri and return, with some extra for emergencies." Jin and Hyun boarded the ship. The inside was cramped but efficient. 2 seats at the front for piloting, a small living area behind with food and water for a week, weapon storage along the walls. "Let me see the data chip," Hyun said. Jin handed it to her. She inserted it into the ship's computer. Immediately, images filled the screens around them. The Admiral's ship, called the Eradicator, maps of its interior, security protocols, guard rotations. "This is good intel," Hyun said, studying the information. "There's a weakness here. The ship receives regular supply deliveries. We could use that to get aboard." Jin sat in the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence. The ship hummed to life around them. "This is Starshot requesting launch clearance," Jin said into the comm. "Clearance granted," came the reply. "Good hunting." The hangar doors above them opened, revealing the night sky. Jin guided the ship upward, gaining speed as they left Earth's atmosphere. Below them, the lights of New Sol grew smaller until they were just one bright spot on the dark side of Earth. Once they were clear of Earth's gravity, Jin set course for Proxima Centauri and engaged the faster-than-light drive. The stars stretched into lines around them as the ship jumped to FTL speed. Hyun joined him in the cockpit, sitting in the co-pilot seat. "Do you think we'll succeed?" she asked quietly. Jin reached over and took her hand. "We have to. For Earth. For everyone we've lost." He looked out at the streaming stars. In 3 days, they would either save humanity or die trying. Either way, the hunt had begun. The trip to Proxima Centauri took 20 hours in faster-than-light travel. Jin spent most of that time studying maps of Admiral Vrock's ship, the Eradicator. Hyun practiced with her blades in the small training area of the Starshot. Neither of them spoke much. They had been on many missions together and knew what needed to be done. "We're coming out of FTL," Jin said as the ship's computer beeped a warning. "Get ready." Hyun put away her blades and came to the cockpit. She strapped herself into the co-pilot seat as the streaking stars outside slowed and became normal points of light again. "Scanners on," Jin said, pressing buttons on the control panel. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The main screen showed the Proxima Centauri system, a bright star in the center, several planets orbiting it, and many ships. Most were Imperial, ships with their distinctive sharp designs. "Look," Hyun pointed at the screen. "An Imperial checkpoint ahead, 6 patrol ships." Jin zoomed in on the image. The 6 Imperial ships were positioned in a line, creating a detection grid. Every ship that wanted to enter the inner system had to pass through it. "This is the first test of our cloaking technology," Jin said. He pressed a button on the control panel. "Activating cloak now." The lights in the ship dimmed as power was directed to the cloaking system. The hum of the engines changed to a higher pitch. "If this fails, we're dead before we even begin," Jin said quietly. Hyun reached over and took his hand in the darkness. "Then we die fighting." They guided the Starshot toward the Imperial checkpoint. Jin kept the ship's speed slow and steady. Any sudden movements might alert the Imperial scanners even with the cloak active. As they approached the first patrol ship, Jin held his breath. The Imperial ship was 3 times the size of the Starshot, with weapons that could destroy them in seconds. The patrol ship's scanners swept over the area where they were, but gave no sign of detecting them. Slowly, they passed through the entire checkpoint. None of the 6 ships noticed them. When they were safely past, Jin let out his breath. "It worked," Hyun said, sounding both surprised and relieved. "Now we find the Admiral's ship," Jin said. He adjusted the scanners to search for a specific energy signature. "The Eradicator should be easy to spot. It's much bigger than the other ships." The scanner beeped, and an image appeared on the screen. It showed a massive Imperial warship surrounded by 20 smaller vessels. There, Hyun pointed. That's the Eradicator. Jin nodded. And look at all those guard ships. We need to find a way past them. He guided the Starshot behind a large asteroid to stay hidden while they planned their next move. From this position, they could watch the Eradicator without being seen. For 2 hours, they observed the patterns of ships coming and going from the Eradicator. Finally, they noticed something useful. That ship, Hyun said, pointing to a medium-sized vessel approaching the Eradicator. It's making a delivery. See how the other ships are letting it pass without stopping it? Jin zoomed in on the ship. You're right. It must be a regular supply ship. They trust it. If we can get close to it, we can use it to approach the Eradicator. Without drawing attention, Hyun suggested. Jin nodded. Good idea. He carefully guided the Starshot out from behind the asteroid, keeping the cloaking system active. They approached the supply ship from behind and matched its speed, staying in its sensor shadow. We'll need to board it, Jin said. Take control of it, then use it to dock with the Eradicator. Hyun went to the back of the Starshot and opened a storage compartment. She took out 2 spacesuits designed for EVA, extravehicular activity. The suits were black and fitted with magnetic boots for walking on the outside of ships. Ready? She asked, handing one suit to Jin. He nodded and began putting on the suit. Once they were both suited up, they moved to the airlock. Jin set the ship's computer to maintain position behind the supply vessel. Remember, Jin said through the suit's comm system, we need to be quick and quiet. If they alert the Eradicator that something is wrong, we'll never get close to the Admiral. Hyun checked her blades one last time. They were attached to her suit in easy-to-reach spots. She also carried a small laser cutter for getting through the supply ship's hull if needed. For Earth, she said. For Mina. Jin nodded. For all of us. He opened the outer airlock door and they pushed off from the Starshot toward the supply ship. The magnetic boots in their suits would activate when they got close to the metal hull of the target vessel. The distance between the ships was only about 50 meters, but in space, it felt much longer. Jin kept his eyes on the supply ship, ready to activate his boots when he got close enough. Beside him, Hyun did the same. Finally, they reached the hull of the supply ship. Their boots connected with a soft thud that they felt, rather than heard, in the vacuum of space. They were now standing on the outside of the enemy vessel. Hyun pointed to a service hatch nearby. They walked carefully across the hull until they reached it. Jin kept watch while Hyun used her laser cutter to break the lock on the hatch. It took only a minute before the hatch opened. They climbed inside and sealed the hatch behind them. They were in a small airlock. Hyun pressed the button to pressurize the chamber. When the green light came on, they opened their helmet visors. We're in, Jin said quietly. Now we find the crew. They drew their weapons and opened the inner door. They were in a narrow corridor lit by dim red lights. The supply ship was much smaller than the Eradicator, with probably only a dozen crew members at most. They moved silently through the corridor toward the bridge. Suddenly, a door opened ahead of them, and an alien stepped out. It was one of the Empire's reptilian species with scaly green skin and 4 yellow eyes. Before it could make a sound, Hyun's blade flashed in the dim light. The alien dropped to the deck without a cry. First blood, Hyun whispered, wiping her blade clean. They dragged the body into a storage room and continued toward the bridge. They encountered 2 more aliens on the way and dealt with them just as quickly and quietly. When they reached the bridge, they found 4 aliens at their stations. Jin used his pulse rifle, set to silent mode. 3 quick shots, and 3 aliens went down. The 4th turned an alarm, but Hyun's blade caught it in the throat before it could sound an alarm. Ship is secure, Jin said, moving to the control panel. Now we need to figure out how to fly it. The alien controls were different from human ones, but not impossible to understand. After a few minutes, Jin had figured out the basics. The ship is on automatic approach to the Eradicator, he said. It's scheduled to dock in 20 minutes. Hyun was searching the bodies of the dead aliens. She found something useful. Look, access cards. We'll need these to move around on the Eradicator. She also found environmental suits designed for the reptilian crew. And these will help us blend in. At a distance in these suits we might pass for crew members. Jin nodded. Good thinking. They put on the alien suits over their own. The suits were too big and felt strange, but they would help hide their human shapes. The helmets would cover their faces completely. As the supply ship continued toward the Eradicator, Jin and Hyun prepared their weapons and checked their gear one last time. Everything had gone smoothly so far, but the real challenge was still ahead. The huge bulk of the Eradicator grew larger in the view screen. It was at least 1,000 times bigger than their little starshot, with weapons that could destroy entire cities on Earth. Remember the plan, Jin said. We get in, find the Admiral, eliminate him, and get out. No delays, no detours. Hyun nodded. Stick to the shadows. Avoid contact when possible. Kill when necessary. The supply ship's computer announced that docking would begin in 2 minutes. Jin and Hyun put on their alien helmets and stood ready by the airlock. For Earth, Jin said. For Mina, Hyun replied. The supply ship shuddered slightly as it connected with the Eradicator's docking bay. The real mission was about to begin. The supply ship docked with the Eradicator with a gentle bump. Jin and Hyun stood by the airlock in their stolen alien suits, waiting. A green light came on above the door, indicating that the connection was secure and the air pressure was stable. Ready? Jin asked, his voice muffled by the alien helmet. Hyun nodded. Stay close and follow my lead. The airlock door slid open. On the other side stood 2 Imperial guards. They wore armor with the Empire's symbol on the chest. Their scaly faces showed no emotion as they waited for the supply ship crew to exit. Jin and Hyun stepped through the airlock. Jin carried a cargo box they had found on the supply ship. It gave them a reason to be moving through the Eradicator without raising questions. Delivery for level 40, Jin said, trying to make his voice sound rough like the reptilian aliens. He held out the access card they had taken from the dead crew. One of the guards took the card and scanned it. The scanner beeped green. The guard handed the card back without a word and pointed toward a corridor on the left. Jin and Hyun walked in the direction indicated, trying to match the walking style of the aliens they had seen. They needed to act normal until they were out of sight. Once they turned a corner and were alone in the corridor, Hyun let out a quiet breath. That was too easy. Don't get comfortable, Jin warned. This is a warship with thousands of crew members, and we need to find one specific alien in all of this. They consulted a small device Hyun had hidden in her suit. It displayed a map of the Eradicator that they had studied during their journey. Admiral Vrock will be on the command deck, Hyun said. That's 40 levels up from here. Jin looked around. The corridor. We need a computer terminal, get more information. They continued walking, still carrying the cargo box. They passed several aliens in the corridors, but none paid them much attention. The Eradicator was so large that not everyone knew each other. Finally, they found an empty room with a computer terminal. Jin stood guard at the door, while Hyun accessed the terminal. Her fingers moved quickly over the alien keyboard. Found something, she said after a minute. The Admiral is on the command deck, but there's a problem. Security is very tight. Biometric scanners at every entrance. Our disguises won't fool those. Jin thought for a moment. What about maintenance access? Every ship has service tunnels. For repairs. Hyun typed more commands into the terminal. A new map appeared on the screen. Here, she pointed. Maintenance shafts run alongside the main elevator system. They're used by service droids. Can we access them? Hyun nodded. There's an entrance 2 levels down from here. It leads all the way up to level 60, near the command deck. Jin checked the corridor outside. Clear. Let's move. They left the room and found a stairwell that took them down 2 levels. The maintenance entrance was behind a panel in a quiet section of the corridor. Hyun used one of her smaller blades to open the panel, and they slipped inside. The maintenance shaft was narrow and dark. It was designed for droids, not humanoids. They had to crawl on hands and knees. Pipes and cables ran along the walls, carrying power and data throughout the massive ship. It's going to be a long climb, Jin said, looking up the vertical shaft that would take them toward the command deck. Just as they started climbing, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the maintenance shaft. They found the bodies on the supply ship, Jin realized. We need to move faster, Hyun said. Stealth is secondary now. They climbed as quickly as they could. The shaft had ladders built into the walls for maintenance workers. It was exhausting work climbing 40 levels, but they pushed on without rest. Behind them, they could hear sounds of Imperial troops searching the lower levels. After an hour of climbing, they reached level 60. Hyun checked her map again. The command deck is level 70. We're close, but this maintenance shaft doesn't go all the way. We'll need to go through regular corridors for the last 10 levels. Jin nodded. Then we need to be careful. The alarm means they're looking for intruders. They opened a panel and peered out into a corridor. It was empty, but they could hear the sound of running feet nearby. Imperial troops were searching the ship level by level. Wait, Jin said, spotting something. Look, at the end of the corridor was a group of Imperial guards. They were gathered around a lift entrance, weapons ready. They're expecting us to head for the command deck, Hyun said. So we need to change their expectations, Jin replied. He thought, for a moment. The ship's systems control room. Where is it? Hyun checked her map again. Level 65. It controls life support, fire systems, everything. Perfect. If we can't go to the Admiral, we'll make him come to us. They crawled through more maintenance shafts until they reached level 65. When they looked out into the corridor, they saw 2 guards standing outside a door marked with Imperial symbols. That's it, Hyun whispered. The systems control room. Jin pulled out his pulse rifle. Ready? Hyun nodded and drew 2 of her blades. Ready. They burst out of the maintenance shaft. Jin fired twice, taking down both guards before they could raise an alarm. Hyun ran to the door and used the access card they had taken from the supply ship crew. The door slid open. Inside the control room were 3 Imperial technicians. They turned in surprise as Jin and Hyun entered. Hyun's blades flashed and 2 of the technicians fell. Jin shot the 3rd one before he could press the alarm button. Quick, Jin said, moving to the main control panel. We don't have much time. He removed his alien helmet so he could see better. Hyun did the same. They could finally breathe freely. After hours in the stuffy helmets, Jin studied the control panel. The symbols were alien, but he had trained to understand basic Imperial technology. After a moment, he began pressing buttons and adjusting controls. What are you doing? Hyun asked, keeping watch at the door. Creating a series of emergencies, Jin explained. Fire alarms in the engine room, atmosphere warnings in the crew quarters, and, he pressed a final sequence, life support failure. Alerts on the officer's deck where Admiral Vrock has his private quarters. Hyun smiled for the first time since they had left Earth. So he'll evacuate to his personal shuttle bay. Exactly, Jin said. Standard Imperial protocol for high-ranking officers. When the ship is in danger, they head for their emergency escape shuttles. Where is the Admiral's shuttle bay? Jin pointed to a map on the screen. Level 72. 1 level above the command deck. Suddenly, the door to the control room began to open. Jin and Hyun quickly put their helmets back on and stood over the dead technicians as if they had just discovered them. An Imperial officer entered, followed by 4 guards. The officer looked at Jin and Hyun, then at the dead technicians. Who are you? The officer demanded. What happened here? Jin spoke, in the rough voice he had used before. Found them like this, sir. Intruders must have been here. The officer looked suspicious. What unit are you with? Before Jin could answer, Hyun threw one of her blades. It caught the officer in the throat. Jin spun and fired his pulse rifle, taking down 2 guards. Hyun's second blade found another guard's eye. The 4th guard managed to fire once before Jin shot him too. The guard's shot hit Jin in the arm. He grunted in pain as his alien disguise tore, revealing the human suit underneath. Are you okay? Hyun asked, retrieving her blades from the dead aliens. Jin checked his arm. The shot had burned through the suit, but the wound wasn't deep. I'll live, but our cover is blown. Hyun looked at the dead officer and guards. They'll find these bodies soon. We need to move now. They left the control room and ran toward the nearest stairwell. Already they could hear the chaos their fake emergencies were causing. Alarm bells rang throughout the ship. Announcements in the Imperial language blared from speakers. Crew members ran through the corridors, heading to emergency stations. "It's working," Jin said as they climbed the stairs toward level 72. "The ship is in confusion." They passed level 70, the command deck. Guards were gathered there, but they were busy responding to the emergency alerts and paid no attention to two more crew members running past. Finally, they reached level 72. According to the ship's layout, Admiral Vrock's private shuttle bay was at the end of a long corridor. As they approached, they could see that the bay doors were already open. The Admiral was preparing to evacuate. "This is it," Jin said, checking his pulse rifle. "The Admiral will be there, probably with guards." Hyun nodded, her blades ready in her hands. "For Earth." "For Mina," Jin replied. They threw aside their damaged alien disguises. There was no point hiding anymore. Then they moved toward the shuttle bay, ready to face Admiral Vrock and complete their mission. Jin and Hyun moved silently toward the shuttle bay doors. They could hear voices inside. Jin peered around the corner carefully. What he saw surprised him. Inside the shuttle bay stood 10 Imperial guards in full armor. They formed a protective circle around a tall figure that had to be Admiral Vrock. But the Admiral was not what Jin expected. While the guards were the same reptilian species they had seen throughout the ship, Admiral Vrock was completely different. He was much taller, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Each arm moved with strange grace as he gave orders to his guards. "That's not the same species as the other aliens," Jin whispered to Hyun. Hyun nodded. "Higher rank, different species. The Empire has many races working for it." They pulled back from the doorway to plan their attack. 10 guards, Jin said. "Too many for a direct assault," Hyun thought for a moment. "The shuttle bay has emergency doors that conceal sections in case of a breach. If we can close those doors, we can separate the guards." Jin looked around and spotted a control panel on the wall nearby. "This might control the bay doors. Cover me." He moved to the panel while Hyun kept watch. The controls were in the Imperial language, but Jin recognized some symbols from his training. He pressed a series of buttons. Red lights flashed in the shuttle bay. A loud alarm sounded and metal doors began to slide down from the ceiling, dividing the large bay into smaller sections. "Now," Jin said, drawing his pulse rifle. They rushed into the shuttle bay as confusion spread among the guards. 5 guards were cut off by the emergency doors, leaving 5 with the Admiral. Jin fired rapidly, taking down 2 guards before they could react. Hyun threw her blades with deadly accuracy, killing 2 more. The last guard managed to fire his weapon. The shot missed Jin by centimeters and hit a fuel container behind him. The container exploded, sending Jin flying. He landed hard but rolled to his feet, pulse rifle still in hand. The guard turned to fire again, but Jin was faster. His shot hit the guard in the center of his chest, dropping him to the floor. All 5 guards were down. Admiral Vrock stood alone, by his shuttle, watching Jin and Hyun with calm eyes. "Human bounty hunters," the Admiral said in perfect human language. His voice was musical, almost pleasant. "You have come a long way just to die." "You're the one who's dying today," Hyun said, retrieving her blades from the dead guards. Her voice was cold with hate. "For New Mars. For all the human colonies you've destroyed." Admiral Vrock's 4 arms raised slowly in what seemed like a peaceful gesture. "I have not given the orders you believe I have." Jin kept his rifle aimed at the Admiral's chest. "We have the communication logs. The attack orders came from this ship, from you." "From this ship, yes. But I am not your true enemy." The Admiral moved one of his 4 hands slowly toward a panel on the wall of his shuttle. "See for yourself." Jin kept his weapon trained on the Admiral, while Hyun moved cautiously to the panel. She pressed the button the Admiral had indicated. Screen lit up, showing a series of communications. Hyun's eyes widened as she read them. "Jin," her voice faltered. These aren't attack orders from Vrock. They're being relayed through his ship from somewhere else. She looked up in shock. From Earth. Jin glanced at the screen while keeping his weapon on the Admiral. What he saw made his blood run cold. The communications were between the Admiral's ship and a location in the southern part of Earth, and they were giving orders for the systematic destruction of human colonies. Your Commander Park, I believe, is his name, Admiral Vrock said quietly. He has been working with a faction within our empire, arranging the elimination of human colonies while preserving Earth itself. Why? Hyun demanded, though her face showed she was beginning to understand the terrible truth. Resources. Power. The usual reasons beings betray their own kind. Vrock replied, I have been investigating this conspiracy from within. That is why I allowed you to reach me. I need allies who can stop this before all humans except Park's chosen few are eradicated. Jin found it hard to believe. You expect us to trust you? An Imperial Admiral? I expect you to trust evidence, Vrock said. He pressed another button. On the panel, new images appeared on the screen. They showed Commander Park meeting with Imperial representatives. The images were dated before the first colony attacks. These are from our surveillance, Vrock explained. Park has been working with us for years. He offers us human biological material for our research, and in return, he gets to rule what remains of humanity after we eliminate most of your colonies. Hyun's face had turned pale. And my sister? New Mars colony? Collateral damage in Park's rise to power, Vrock said, his voice showing what seemed like genuine regret. I am sorry. I tried to warn the colony, but Park discovered my communications and blocked them. Jin lowered his weapon slightly, his mind racing. Everything they had believed was wrong. They had been sent here by the very person who had betrayed humanity. Why should we believe you? Jin asked. This could be a trick. Admiral Vrock walked to his shuttle and returned with a small device. This contains all the evidence, communications between Park and Imperial High Command, the real attack plans, financial transactions, everything you need to expose him. Hyun took the device, her hand shaking slightly. If this is true, then Park sent us here expecting us to die. Yes, Vrock agreed. He has sent many others before. You? None made it this far. You two are exceptional. Jin finally lowered his weapon completely. If what you're saying is true, then Earth is still in danger. Not from you, but from Park. Precisely, Vrock said. He is planning the final phase. Now, a fake attack on Earth that will kill millions but leave him in control of what remains. It will happen in less than 48 hours. Jin and Hyun looked at each other. They had come to kill this alien, but now everything had changed. They faced an impossible choice. Trust this Imperial Admiral who claimed to be an ally, or return to Earth and confront the man who had sent them on this mission. We need to get back to Earth, Jin decided. Warn people about Park. Your ship will not make it in time, Vrock said. Imperial patrols are on high alert now, but mine can. He gestured to his personal shuttle. It is faster than any human vessel, and can pass through our security without question. Hyun's eyes narrowed. You would take us back to Earth? Why? What do you gain from this? My species values biology and diversity above all else, Vrock explained. Park's plan to preserve only a small, controlled human population for research disgusts me. I believe all species should be free to develop naturally. Jin studied the Admiral's alien face, trying to detect any sign of deception. But the blue-skinned being was too different to read easily. We don't have much choice, Jin finally said to Hyun. If he's telling the truth, we need to get back to Earth immediately. If he's lying... He patted his pulse rifle. Hyun nodded grimly. For Earth. They boarded the Admiral's shuttle, a sleek vessel with technology far beyond anything they had seen before. Vrock took the pilot's seat while Jin and Hyun sat behind him, still watchful and ready for any sign of betrayal. The shuttle lifted off smoothly from the bay and accelerated away from the Eradicator. No alarms sounded, no weapons fired at them. They passed through the Imperial security perimeter without challenge. Setting course for Earth, Vrock announced. We will arrive in 10 hours. As the stars blurred around them, Jin looked at Hyun. Her face was hard with anger and determination. They had come to kill an enemy, only to discover a greater betrayal. Now they were heading back to confront the real threat to humanity, one of their own. The journey back to Earth was tense and quiet. Jin sat watching Admiral Vrock's every move, still not fully trusting the alien. Hyun spent the time looking through the evidence on the device Vrock had given them. With each file she opened, her anger grew stronger. "It's all here," she said finally. "Communications going back 6 years. Park has been working with the Empire since before the first attack." Jin moved to look at the screen. "Does it say why? Why would he betray his own people?" Admiral Vrock answered without turning from the ship's controls. "Your commander, Park, is what my people call a collector. He values rare things, and he saw an opportunity to become the owner of the last humans in the galaxy." "Owner?" Jin asked, disgusted. In his agreement with certain Imperial leaders, Earth would become his personal territory. The surviving humans would be his subjects, and some would be sent to Imperial research centers for study. Hyun's hand tightened around one of her blades. "Like animals in a zoo." "Precisely," Vrock said. "My faction in the Empire opposes this plan. We believe in cooperation, not extinction and collection." As they approached Earth's solar system, Vrock showed them the attack plan Park had created with his Imperial allies. A fleet of ships would target major population centers, killing billions but leaving key military bases intact. Those bases would be under Park's control. He plans to present himself as the savior, Vrock explained, the man who negotiated humanity's survival after a devastating attack. "When is this supposed to happen?" Jin asked. "Tomorrow," Vrock replied. "The fleet is already in position beyond your detection systems." They were now close enough to see Earth on the view screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space with no sign of the danger approaching it. "We're being scanned," Vrock announced. "Earth's defense systems have detected us." The communication system beeped. A voice came through the speakers. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Earth-restricted space. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be fired upon." Vrock looked at Jin. "They will not believe me. You must speak." Jin leaned toward the communication panel. "This is Jin, Bounty Hunter Code 7734. We are returning from Mission Alpha with critical information. Request emergency landing clearance." There was a pause, then the voice returned. "Verification accepted, but our scans show 3 life forms. Aboard. 1 is not human. Explain." Jin hesitated, then decided on the truth. "We have Admiral Vrock of the Imperial Fleet with us. He comes with evidence of treason against humanity. I repeat, we need emergency landing clearance." Another longer pause followed. Finally, the voice returned. "Landing coordinates sent. You will be met by a full security team. Any hostile action will result in immediate response." As they began their descent toward Earth, missile launchers tracked their ship. One wrong move and they would be shot down. "They're scared," Hyun observed. "With good reason," Vrock replied. "In their position, I would shoot us down to be safe." Jin watched as they passed through clouds, and the landscape of Earth came into view. They were heading toward the main United Earth Defense Force base in what used to be called Australia. "Park will know we're coming," Jin said. "He'll try to stop us before we can show the evidence." Hyun nodded. "We need to be ready for anything." The shuttle landed smoothly on a marked pad. Through the view screen, they could see at least 30 soldiers surrounding them, weapons ready. "Let me go first," Jin said. "They know me." He stepped out of the shuttle with his hands raised. Immediately, bright lights shone in his face. "Jin confirmed," said a voice. "Where is the other bounty hunter and the alien?" "Right behind me," Jin replied. "We have evidence of treason at the highest level. We need to speak with General Sato, immediately." "Not Commander Park." "I repeat, not Commander Park." There was confusion among the soldiers. One stepped forward. "Why not Commander Park? He's your direct superior." "Because he's a traitor," Hyun said, stepping out of the shuttle. "He's working with the Empire to destroy human colonies. The soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, an older woman pushed through the crowd. It was General Sato, the head of Earth's military. "That's a serious accusation," she said. "Where's your proof?" Admiral Vrock stepped out of the shuttle. The soldiers raised their weapons, but General Sato motioned for them to hold. "I have all the evidence here," Vrock said, holding out the data device. "Communications, plans, everything." Before General Sato could take it, a new voice spoke from the back of the crowd. "General, this is clearly an Imperial trick." Commander Park walked forward, his face a mask of concern. "They've captured our bounty hunters and forced them to bring this alien spy to Earth." Jin stepped forward. "That's not true. We found evidence on the Admiral's ship showing that Park has been working with the Empire for years. He arranged the attacks on our colonies." Park laughed, but Jin could see fear in his eyes. "An alien shows up with fake evidence and you believe it? This is absurd." General Sato looked uncertain. "We should examine the evidence before—" "There's no time," Park interrupted. "Our sensors show an Imperial fleet approaching. We need to prepare our defenses." "That fleet is part of his plan," Hyun said fiercely. "He arranged it all." The soldiers and General Sato looked back and forth between Park and the bounty hunters. Not knowing who to believe, Jin had an idea. "Check the communication records from Earth's main transmitter. Park has been sending messages to the Imperial fleet for years. The records will show it." General Sato nodded to one of her aides who ran to a nearby building. Park's face changed. He reached slowly for a weapon hidden under his uniform. Hyun saw the movement and threw one of her blades. It struck Park's hand, pinning it to his leg. He cried out in pain. "Arrest him," General Sato ordered. Several soldiers moved to grab Park. "You don't understand what's at stake," Park said, his face twisted with anger and pain. "The Empire would have destroyed us completely. I saved what I could. You sacrificed millions of people." "My sister and her family," Hyun said, her voice shaking with emotion. "For power," the aide returned running. "General, we checked the records. There have been regular encrypted transmissions to the coordinates of the Imperial fleet for the past 6 years, all sent under Commander Park's authorization. Code. That was all the confirmation they needed." Park was placed under arrest, still protesting that he had done it all to save humanity. Admiral Vrock gave General Sato the full attack plans. Earth's defenses were mobilized immediately. When the Imperial fleet arrived, they found Earth ready and waiting. The attack was repelled, and the traitors in the Empire who had worked with Park were exposed. 1 year later, Jin and Hyun stood at a memorial ceremony for New Mars colony. Admiral Vrock stood with them, now the official representative of a new peace treaty between Earth and the reformed Empire. Together, they had helped establish a ceasefire and began rebuilding the destroyed colonies. Hyun placed a small stone on her sister's memorial. "We did it, Mina," she whispered. "We found the truth." Jin put his arm around her shoulders and saved what was left. Vrock watched them with his alien eyes. "Your species is remarkable. Even when betrayed by one of your own, you found the strength to trust a former enemy." Jin nodded. "Sometimes enemies become allies when they share a common goal. And bounty hunters become heroes," Hyun added with a small smile. Behind them, a new colony ship was preparing for launch. It would carry the first settlers back to New Mars to rebuild what had been destroyed. There was still much work to do, but humanity had survived its darkest hour. And it was all because 2 bounty hunters had been willing to see beyond appearances and find the truth, no matter how painful. As they watched the colony ship rise into the blue sky, Jin thought about their journey. They had left Earth to kill an enemy only to return with an ally. They had gone seeking revenge but found redemption instead. It wasn't the mission they had expected, but it was the one that had saved humanity. The end.